Welcome to Reframe Your Mindset for Success. With me today is Baha. How are you today, Baha?
I'm doing well, Paul. Actually, I'm a little bit sick, but I'll try to do my best in this session today. I think I caught a cold.
Okay, and it's absolutely been doing the rounds in the UK. So, obviously, over there too, unfortunately.
Yes, it's very cold. It's like minus 6 degrees at the moment in Berlin.
Oh, wow, it's really cold, really cold. So, well, I know you're not feeling too well, but what have you been working on this week? Have you been able to still crack on and get stuff done?
Yes, so this week I'm working on what I'm doing this week. So I had some client
Yeah.
calls with both clients and potential customers. So preparing some proposals, as well as reading books, doing my own learning and development as well. I am a member of NSA. It's an organization in the USA, National Speakers Association. So
Right.
I go through the trainings of National Speaker Association, basically on communication, different aspects of the business, as well as presentation and leadership.
Great stuff. Excellent. Well, so it sounds like a really good week. So I know since we last spoke, and it's been a number of years that you've recently published the book Creating Psychological Safety at Work, and that's really what we're going to be talking about today is the big idea. But on the basis of before we get into that, before we talk about that in a little bit more detail, what I was really interested in, I love opening the podcast with talking about the future
Mhm.
because obviously we're going through what is now the onset of AI, and obviously there's geopolitical tensions across the world, and the way the world's shaping up. And I'm really interested in when you come onto the podcast is getting insights into how you think the future is going to shape as the initial part of the conversation.
Yeah, I believe in a future of work which is human-based,
Yeah.
human-centric, and based on psychological safety. Especially in today's times, uncertainty, wars in the world, AI, agentic AI, the intelligence of AI is improving dramatically. And what will remain for us as leaders, as employees, will be our human aspect,
Yeah.
our ability to show compassion,
Yeah.
show empathy, and connect with others. So that's the human element of this. So I believe that the future of work and the future of leadership will be human based and based on psychological safety, especially now in times of uncertainty. How can we accept, this difficult situation, communicate clearly, create a space for others to express their questions, concerns, ideas, and mistakes. And I believe that the organizations and leaders who can show this human aspect and also psychological safety are the ones that will thrive.
Right, with you, okay. And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because the way I look at it, in some respects, because we're always, on laptops, computers, mobile phones, and some respects, you see the behavior of people as if they're becoming robotic, and now the robots are actually going to be becoming more human. But actually, the real differentiator in the future is going to be that human leadership, isn't it? At the end of the day. So, where are we going with this then? Psychological safety has become one of the most talked about leadership topics,
Mhm.
but too often it's misunderstood as being nice instead of being effective. So, today we want to reframe how leaders think about safety as a strategic advantage. So, here we go. First question for you, Bahar, is in your view, what's the biggest misconception leaders have about psychological safety?
Actually, you pointed out quite correctly. That's what I see as well. So certain people think that psychological safety is all about being nice, be nice, and try to say yes to everything. Actually, this is not. And recently, I did a project with one person, and this gentleman, he also read my book, and he had the idea that psychological safety is basically around avoiding conflicts. So we are in this project together, and whenever there is a problem or a conflict, instead of digging deep and trying to understand the root cause to be able to solve them, he was like, "No, no, 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 it's okay. If you don't want, we don't talk about it. So trying to avoid conflicts all the time. And unfortunately, this is the perception of many other business professionals as well. Actually, psychological safety is just the opposite of it. So we need to show courage, and psychological safety is about achieving high standards and doing it in a humane way. It's not avoiding conflict, it's creating a space where people express their questions, concerns, ideas, and mistakes. And for that, we need to give space for people, create an environment where they can talk.
Yeah.
And the idea behind that is to achieve high performance. It's not avoiding problems, it's going to those, making it safe for people to express those with a view to find solutions.
Okay. So from what I'm hearing there, it's not about being a nice manager. It's about being effective in the way that you lead, but creating that space for people. So I know you define psychological safety as more than trust. How is it different, and why does that distinction matter?
Yeah, in many cases, what I see in organizations is that sometimes, in many cases, I talk with organizations, and when I say, how do you see this topic of psychological safety? Some of them say to me, oh, we do training on it. And then I say, oh, may I ask what kind? And they say, we did one training on the topic of trust, and now it's a psychological safety. So trust is important. It's a
Yeah,
crucial aspect of psychological safety. And actually, psychological safety includes other aspects as well. So, how to deal with mistakes, showing vulnerability, humility, curiosity, asking good questions, clear communications. So, even if I am in a team where maybe I trust my team members, maybe that team is not high performing. Maybe, we are in our comfort zone.
yeah, yeah.
So, psychological safety is one step ahead of it. And trust is important, and on top of it, how can we achieve high standards? How can we show effective approaches when mistakes happen?
With you. Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And it's really interesting, isn't it? You know, the trust there lies into being, well, you can have trust and be a nice manager, but that doesn't mean that you definitely got high performance. So when organizations then miss psychological safety, what would you say the cost is to both human and performance wise?
Yeah, that's a good question. There is a report of Gallup. In that report, the question is when the employees feel that their opinions count, what is the effect of that on business? And there are three basically metrics on this: employee turnover, employee productivity, and safety incidents. So when employees feel that their opinions count, it's basically a workplace where there is psychological safety. They feel safe to express their opinions, and
Yeah.
these opinions are valued. And they see a reduction in employee turnover, decrease in safety incidents, and improvement in employee productivity. So when you think about a big global organization with
Yeah.
thousands of employees, this is a huge benefit in terms of US dollars, pounds, or euros.
Absolutely, massive benefit then, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because I've worked in cultures where you actually work in the organization and you actually feel safe to be able to speak your mind freely, and then obviously I've worked in organizations where you've not felt as safe, or it might not just have been the organization; it might have been the department, it might have been the manager that you were working for, and you know those things obviously have a massive influence on how you feel and that freedom to be able to share ideas or feedback or whatever it might be. So, you know, looking at that leadership shift then, what mindset shift do leaders need to move from commanding obedience to enabling openness then?
Yeah, that's a good question. Since you also had, you are an executive at global companies. Um, so the shift actually is from, as you highlighted, is from command and control to empowering. So this shift includes, instead of giving directions to employees, how can we as leaders bring out the best in others by asking good questions to them, coaching them, giving them autonomy? I can give you an example. Recently, I've done learning sessions and also coaching for leaders at one global company. And then there was one leader in this training group. Very smart guy, PhD in engineering, and he's managing teams. And in the training session, he realized that sometimes his style is more like command and control. He has some ideas in his mind, and whenever he has meetings with team members, he pushes his own ideas to the team. And in the training, he realized that instead of doing that, he needs to give space to employees to express their ideas, to create their own solutions so that they can have higher possibility of owning them and implementing them. So this leader is open to this idea, and then through coaching, what we realize is that he told me that he wrote on a piece of on post-it note, and whenever he has one-on-one with his team members, he wrote on the post-it note, ask
Yeah.
rather than giving his own idea. And then he is trying to do this shift himself through the training and coaching. In those situations, his first instinct is to give his own idea. Now he stops and then asks questions to team members, follow-up questions, clarifying questions. And then throughout the sessions, coaching and training, he told me that he's seeing an improvement. Employees are more engaged, employees bring out their own ideas, higher ownership, and more application as well. So it's basically around our awareness, openness, and interest to
Yeah.
make this shift, to show more curiosity, giving autonomy, and being more like a coach as well.
I was gonna say it's very much a coaching approach, isn't it? I know my work as an executive coach, I work with a lot of senior leaders there. At times there is that command and control style of leadership, and sometimes it's because they see that they can do it better than the people that are working for them, or sometimes there's a lack of trust there, and you go, but that doesn't create the type of safety and empowerment that people need to thrive. So that was a great example of explaining that. So, what would be the most powerful question a leader can start asking tomorrow to test their team's psychological safety?
Most powerful question. My work in psychological safety is influenced and inspired by the research of A. Mattinson. She's a leading academic on the topic. And A. Mattinson, in his book, The Fearless Organization,
Yeah,
she includes some questions to be able to evaluate the level of psychological safety. So I brought my book with me. And in my book as well, you can see those questions on, I will now going to open this here towards the end. So you can see here 7 statements.
yeah,
And I believe that these all 7 statements rather than choosing one, these are all relevant. I can tell you a few of them.
yeah, please.
So so listeners can evaluate each of these statements from strongly disagree,
Yeah,
neutral, agree, or strongly agree. One of them is, if you make a mistake on this team, it is not held against you.
yeah,
Another one is, members of this team are able to bring up problems and tough issues. Another one is, no one on this team would deliberately act in a way that undermines my efforts. So in total, 7 statements, then these are all relevant. And
right.
we can do this with our teams as well, let's say anonymously, and we can have an idea about the level of psychological safety. And we can do this periodically as well, let's say once every 6 months, to see more or less how is it going. And in case our relationship with the team is not at an optimal level, maybe
Yeah,
an HR can do this as well, and the team members can answer this anonymously. The main point is to get this data or the information and see strengths and also areas of improvement. And regarding the areas of improvement, talk with the team, get their ideas, make it tangible, actionable, and start working on this so that the team can see that we take this seriously
yeah,
and we implement insights from this. Otherwise, what happens in many organizations, they do surveys, they get data, and sometimes they're not acted upon, and the trust of employees go down. So use this, get data, start working on it, even step by step, small steps, which can show to employees that it is taken seriously and it can
Great,
be
great,
improved.
great questions. I really like those. It reminds me of time of in my past history. I was working in an organization and I was working with what I call an adult environment, working with real professionals at the time. And we used to have what we call the 360-degree feedback culture. So we're not talking about 360-degree feedback reports that leaders get. We're just talking about a statement that defines the culture. And what that culture was in the 360, it was that you could give feedback in any situation. You know, if you wanted to share an idea or you wanted to say, I don't think that works, that real freedom, but it was like a real safe environment just by actually stating up front, this is a 360 degree feedback culture that we work in. And you can give feedback up, you can give feedback down, and it worked really, really well. But you've got to have a level of, I guess, trust within that environment, and it worked really, really well. Now, that's psychological safety for me. When I worked in that environment, I was actually enjoying. You know, you're getting in the game. It's back in the day. We work a lot remote now, but back in the day, you know, I couldn't wait to get in the car and get to work because the environment was so creative, it was so enjoyable, and everyone was open and honest. I mean, great. It's just a great example of when I felt safe in an environment in work made a real difference.
Yeah. May I ask what's the name of that organization? It's I think it's a great example.
Yeah, so I was working in HBOS at the time, which HBOS eventually got bought by Lloyd's Banking Group, and it was the department that I was working in leadership development. It was just a good time. It was good environment to work in and a very mature environment to work in. And I think when you have that, one, you enjoy the work, but two, the people that you're working with, bouncing ideas off them. I just really enjoyed it. It was a really good time in my career. So that would be a real good example for me.
Yeah, I wish more and more people could work in such environments.
Yeah, no, totally. And as we know, don't get me wrong, and I wouldn't name companies, I wouldn't name departments, I
Yeah,
wouldn't name people, leaders and managers. But obviously, I've worked there's been times when, you've been sitting on your hands, you've not been able to share an idea through fear of the consequences, even though you've got a great idea. And, it's horrible not being able to do that. It's horrible not being able to maybe put your hand up because of the fear. So, I've been in those situations too. But as I say, we won't name those.
yeah. I was also in those situations. And time to time, I can be as well, depending on the projects, etc.
Yeah, and the importance of getting this stuff right, it's so important.
Yeah.
So moving on from there then. So how do leaders then balance psychological safety with accountability, especially in high stakes environments?
Yeah. So I see high level of psychological safety correlated with accountability. So it's not like you either have psychological safety and no accountability, or accountability without psychological safety. They're related. And so accountability basically means you are, let's say, in charge of certain projects and you are accountable to that. You are responsible for how it goes as well. So it includes a certain degree of transparency. Being transparent, being clear on this, having high standards are relevant, important aspects of psychological safety. There is an interesting research mentioned in the book of A. Mattinson, Fearless Organization. There are two teams in
Yeah,
one hospital,
yeah,
and then Team A, the researchers noticed that Team A has doesn't have any mistakes reported, no mistakes reported. In Team B, they noticed that there are mistakes, and they make mistakes. The mistakes are reported. So researchers get together, and the question is, which team is more successful? Their first instinct is it should be Team A. Team A doesn't have any mistake.
yeah,
Later, researchers think, okay, let's dig deep, let's try to analyze this again. And it turns out that actually in Team A, there are mistakes, but mistakes are not reported. There is a low level of psychological safety. They are afraid of reporting mistakes and talking about it. And there is no accountability here. And so Team A is not that successful. Actually, Team B, there is accountability, there is transparency, clarity. They report mistakes,
Yeah.
they talk about mistakes so that the same mistakes are not repeated. And
Right.
there is a level of accountability in Team B, and Team B is actually more successful. So accountability and psychological safety go hand in hand because
Yeah,
of the
definitely.
transparency and clarity aspects.
Yeah, that definitely. I totally agree there. And well, once again, living through experience of, that fear of making a mistake or, making a mistake, blame culture, or at times, just the fear of the repercussions. But then I look at it where I've worked in it, organizations where you can make a mistake, and then the thing for me, it was always about smart failure, is that we will make mistakes, but if you learn quickly from the mistake and, we build on it as an individual or as a team or as a department, then, it's only going to be a good thing because we're experimenting, we're testing, we're doing new things, so for me, that's always been really important. So psychological safety then, and if we think about inclusion, because they tend to go hand in hand, if you look at that and go, how can this mindset accelerate diversity of thought when it comes to psychological safety?
Mhm. So what another key aspect of psychological safety is to create a sense of a belonging. So sense of belonging includes diversity and inclusion. So we talk a lot about diversity, diverse talents, diverse backgrounds, diverse teams. Diversity is important. At the same time, it's not enough to have high performance or high performing teams, because we can have a diverse group of employees, but if they do not feel included, we cannot achieve this high performance. So we need diversity
Yeah.
plus inclusion to achieve this sense of belonging. To give you one example, it's a real case. One organization. Normally, in this organization, the decisions are taken by senior management. They are cascaded downwards. Employees at the bottom, they basically implement these decisions taken by senior management. So low level of sort of autonomy for employees, so they don't feel much included in decision making.
Yeah.
At one point, the organization realized the world is changing so fast. If we go this way, we will not be able to thrive. And the management says, okay, so we need to do this in a different way. Rather than us making all the decisions and employees at the bottom implementing that, senior management said we need to create system structures where employees can access information fast. And we can give employees autonomy on certain aspects of their work, because employees, especially at the bottom, they are closer to customers. They can better understand the needs, expectations of our customers. By giving them, autonomy on certain aspects of the work, they can make their own decisions. And once they can make their own decisions, they feel more included in this. They can have higher sense of belonging and implement those ideas. So the organization tried this, and they noticed that employees feel more engaged, and they feel more included in this, and they could react faster to the changes in the market as well. So inclusion, sense of belonging are important components of psychological safety as well.
Yeah, makes sense. Good example. So looking at what leaders can do to ensure that safety is experienced equitably by all team members, what would the advice be?
Yeah, there are many ways to do this. And in my book, I mentioned 32 different tools and approaches. One of the tools which is liked a lot by readers, is an approach called green card.
Okay.
So it's based on a real case. The one director, she starts working at a new company. She has weekly team meetings. And in the team meetings, she tries to get ideas of employees. And whenever she says, what are your ideas? Employees are silent.
Right.
So they do not share any ideas. And this director tries to find ways to engage them. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, she tries different approaches, and none of them works until she comes up with the idea of green card. So this green card, basically she brings a green card to weekly team meetings. And in each weekly team meeting, an employee who has a green card plays the role of the devil's advocate. So that employee mentions what they are missing, what are the risks, what is not said, and whenever an employee with the green card expresses those ideas, the director not only thanks them but also motivates them, encourages them to continue to do it. In the next meeting, another person has a green card, new
Yeah.
person,
Yeah.
then points out what is missing, risks, etc. And after doing this for a number of weeks and months, employees notice that they can express opposing views,
Yeah.
and the director actually encourages them and thanks them, appreciates them for doing it. And it creates an environment where employees feel safe to express their ideas. Not only, ideas, not only their new ideas, but also the opposing ideas as well. So this green card is just one of the tools that we can use to foster psychological safety. The main thing is to do it in a authentic way, consistently, to gain the traction of employees.
Absolutely, yeah. Great tool. It sounds like a really good way, an effective way of doing it. And to me, that's how it creates a 360-degree feedback culture because people then get used to doing it, feel safe, and so forth. Psychological safety is created. So, um, just talking about tools then and measures. So, what are the simplest signals that leaders can use to measure psychological safety in their teams?
Simple signals to measure.
Yeah, yeah,
So the first thing that comes to my mind is the seven statements from A. Mattinson. This can
yeah,
be a good start to measure the level of psychological safety. Again, these are questions, and on top of that, what are the things that we can take a look is the silence in the room.
yeah.
Let's say we are a leader, we have a team meeting, and then you ask who wants to ask a question or ideas, and there is complete silence. It's a signal that we can work on psychological safety.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. That's really interesting. That's resonating with me. Thinking, back to my life in the corporate world and thinking about the times when you have those really awkward silences, and that goes back to though people not feeling safe, isn't it? That fear of the consequences, or obviously the leader or the organization's not creating that place for people to feel as if they can speak their minds without consequences.
Exactly.
Definitely, definitely. So, looking at that, then I know in your book you include reflection questions and action tools in your book. What's one that every leader should use? What would be the one that you advise? And I know you've got the seven questions, but
Good. Which one? You mentioned a few times the feedback. Regarding feedback, maybe the feed forward approach.
yeah,
Whenever the word feedback comes to the minds of leaders, the first thing that they think is constructive or negative feedback, to criticize others, to point out what is missing. And research shows that in high performing teams, there is a ratio 3 to 5 positive feedback
yeah,
for every negative feedback.
yeah,
Marcus Buckingham, one of the pioneers in employee engagement, he says, we cannot create excellence by pointing out only mistakes. And we as human beings grow the most under a positive light. So feedback is a key aspect here, and not seeing it as criticizing others and looking for ways to appreciate, to find what's going well as well. Of course, when there is low performance, we need to intervene, try to help. So 3 to 5 ratio. For every negative feedback, try to give 3 to 5 positive feedback. And feed forward approach is basically proactively asking for feedback from others,
yeah,
making it specific. For
yeah,
example, Paul, about this project XYZ regarding my presentation last week. What do you think did I do well and what can be improved? So it takes courage and at the same time vulnerability to approach others to ask for feedback.
Yeah.
And especially for leaders, this is super important.
Yeah, totally agree, and that's a real good suggestion. It's interesting, isn't it? Because having kids, just as an example, it's interesting being a parent, and you go, and in this day and age, we know a little bit more than maybe what our parents did when they were younger, if you know what I mean, the way we were brought up. But positive psychology to me teaches us that if you praise, if you encourage, you're more likely to get the right behaviors from your children, and actually your children prefer that. They don't like to be criticized, especially in this generation now. You're a little bit
Yeah,
more sensitive, I think, than maybe what we were when we were younger. But you look at it and you go, but it's so important because it works. So whether it's a 5-3 ratio, 5-2 ratio, even 5-1 ratio for me at times, because there's going
yeah,
to be moments when they've got to be pulled up, or someone's got to be pulled up, and you've got to give that feedback, which might be deemed as negative feedback. But to me, one of the lessons I always got taught was feedback, right, in the workplace. How the person takes it will be negative or positive. But I do look at it at the same time, based on what you're just saying, is that the feed forward, that praise, that positive feedback is so important, and it's so easy, isn't it, for some leaders and some managers to only focus on the negative and not deliver that what would be the
yeah,
encouragement praise that people really need. Different managers at the end of the day use different techniques, and it might depend on their different style. But I just think that's a real good, a good point that you've made, basically.
yeah. Some years ago, I was involved in a project, and so I had one partner back at that time, and then whenever I do, good projects, I never get even a thank you from this person. And whenever there is something wrong, this person calls me on the phone and then he just criticizes. So it's really frustrating for us as human beings
Yeah,
just to get only this negative feedback. And unfortunately, in certain workplaces, it's like that, and that's why we see again low level of employee engagement. What is good is that there are also good examples, leaders, organizations, teams which try to improve this and are good examples as well,
yeah,
although in minority.
yeah. So bringing this back around to the future then, and thinking about future leadership and human performance, and you were talking about it at the start about how being human is going to be a differentiator. Okay, so as AI and automation change how we work, why will psychological safety matter more, not less?
I can give you a good question. I can give you one visible example on this: automation, AI, the importance of technology. Real case during pandemic. One organization headquartered in the US, they had to lay off around 10-15% of its employees. And this organization basically sent an email to departing employees. You get an email, you
Yeah,
click on the email, and then you see a pre-recorded video message of the CEO. And
yeah,
as soon as you finish watching the video, you are cut off from the computer's company system. It's fast, it's automated, it's efficient, yeah, and it's very practical way of laying off employees. There is another organization, Stripe, two headquarters, Dublin and San Francisco. Stripe also had to lay off employees. And the approach of Stripe was very different from the first one. Stripe wanted to do it in a humane way
yeah,
with a view to maintain psychological safety. So, first of all, the founders of Stripe wrote a long email to all employees, first accepting their responsibility. As leaders, they made certain decisions, they created a strategy, and now the business is not going well as expected. They apologize to employees, showing the accountability. And later, they provided some benefits to the departing employees, such as they did this conversation with the departing employees face to face, either online if they're in a different location, or in the same city, face to face in the office. In order to facilitate employees, they allow the departing employees to keep the stock options, although they were not vested. To make it easy for employees, they allowed them to keep their laptops. They provided employees with services to find jobs. They gave departing employees alumni email addresses. It's something small. At the same time, departing employees can feel that they are alumni. They are part of this, and they did this in a humane way, trying to maintain psychological safety not only for the departing employees but also for the remaining ones. Because the remaining ones thought, look, we are trying to do it in a humane way. We are the lucky ones. We keep working here, and still we value the employees. So yeah, the first one, fast, efficient, automatic. The second one, maybe slower, more humane, and maintaining psychological safety. So in the future, I think starting from now, it's even more important to have handwritten thank you notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, things like that rather than doing it automated. I can give you another example. I see a lot AI generated videos. Recently, I saw one expert, and this person, she's based in Asia, and then she was creating AI videos on LinkedIn, posting it, talking about future. And I think what we need is human, rather than AI generated videos. How can we show our human aspect, the authenticity? Um, this is, I think, more important than creating AI generated videos of ourselves.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because there's this topic of, when it comes to leadership, vulnerability. And vulnerability is a human trait, right? So I look at it and go, because vulnerability sometimes makes people really endearing, right? And you go, but if you're trying to make everything perfect, because that's what AI can allow us to do, especially if you're using an AI video, it's just this picture of perfection, isn't it? That's not a picture of being human,
Exactly.
because we're not perfect, and I'm far from perfect. My wife always reminds me, but but on the basis of it, you look at it and you go, surely human, that's what people appreciate. That's what people, are more likely to be attracted to. Yeah. And the examples that you just used, the organizations there, the difference is in the future, I think we're going to see some of that efficiency, some of that non-human robotic stuff. And I think, the real successful organizations, the real successful leaders are going to be the ones that are human, that demonstrate vulnerability, that, lead in a compassionate way.
100%.
Yeah. So, on the basis of then thinking about the future of psychological safety as organizations evolve, is psychological safety going to evolve, or is it still the same concept?
Interesting question. So far, I haven't got this question before. I think as a concept, it will continue. The, the main thing is, of course, uncertainties, changes, technology, so it can be in different contexts. Now, let's take a look at the world now. Geopolitical rivalry, polarization in societies, what's going on in the US, war in Europe, Middle East, and tariffs. And when you look at also rising loneliness of employees, so we see aspects such as uncertainty on the one hand, and on the other hand, the well-being, the wellness of employees. So in the case of uncertainty, let's take the US as an example. So let's say you work in the US, polarization, violence,
Yeah.
or it can happen in other countries as well, and you have employees, team members. Now the question is, how can you create psychological safety in this environment? You have
Yeah.
one-on-one with team members. We can do things like asking them how they feel, how are their families, to show this human aspect rather than going straight to the business agenda and talking about business in ignoring what's going on because we are all human beings. We have physical, emotional aspects as well. So uncertainty, taking the time to understand employees, having personal connection with them, asking them how they feel, one aspect. And the second one is about the wellness, the well-being of employees. Again, stress, technology, many of us are stuck to screens. Again, the question is, how can we as leaders create an environment where employees feel safe to express their concerns about their, workload, about their health, and then to find solutions to those. And psychological safety is at the bottom of this. And regarding the well-being of employees, in many cases, it's about the work structure and workload. How can we create workloads which are sustainable for the performance? Because maybe in the short term, we can achieve and hit targets, and we might be burned out. So uncertainty, forming connection, understanding emotions of others in these difficult times, and also the well-being aspect, creating space for them, employees to express their concerns, and
Yeah.
finding ways to solve those issues so that employees feel fit well to perform well.
Okay. So just a couple of questions left, right? So this question is it's a leave for people who might be listening. So if you had to leave leaders with just one question to ask themselves after this conversation, what would it be?
One question to ask themselves. And let me think.